So now we bring the final black color here. We have this person. We make a little smiley there. This is Satan. So, the question that I now have for you is, I've said this is Islam, this is Christianity, this is Judaism. Is Hinduism monotheistic? What you said no immediately, you were shaking your head. Why not?
God is in everyone.
Aha! She said it perfectly. She said, God is everywhere. Meaning that divinity is everywhere. All this non-red stuff that we have doesn't exist in the Hindu and Dharmic worldview. So we now know we're not a monotheistic tradition. I'm going to now draw polytheism for you. Okay? Okay, so now we're back to polytheism. In polytheism, you have several divine entities. There's a tradition called Hellenism. That is, some of these entities are greater than other entities. There's us living in this jagat, and all of us individually are non-divine. This is the traditional, this is the Western framework as it relates to theology. So I'm going to once again ask the question, is Hinduism polytheistic? No. What's the problem? Okay, so she said there's God everywhere. Sarvetru, right? We have divinity everywhere. So the red is problematic. Okay, we're going to do something really cool now. I'm going to draw the three major sampradayas, or schools of thought in Hinduism on the board. And we're not going to talk about the differences between them as much as what unifies them. Okay, let me try to erase this very quickly. Okay, leave this. Okay. So there's who here follows the Smarta tradition? Smarta. You might not even be sure. Do you follow the Smartic tradition? You don't know. Smartic tradition? Okay. So I'm going to draw something for you. So the Smartic tradition is founded by Adi Shankaracharya. And this is the conception of all of our universe, isn't this? And obviously, this divine equals Brahman. We're going to get, I introduced a new term for our youth, Brahman. Great. So, describe for me what you see here. You see something here? If you had to describe the religion now, what would you say? What questions would you ask? Yeah, so he's like, wait, where are the other bubbles? Where's me? Okay, so I'm going to draw a different picture. Does this feel a little bit more like what you were looking for? You're like, okay, where's me? Where's the world? Okay, so let me describe, let me put this here. So I'm going to label this. This is called Dvaita. Now there's a third school of thought here. This is Vishishta Dvaita. Now, there's something important I need to ask everybody. What color or colors are missing? Okay, so the black here represents Satan, which is evil, right? That tempts people away from God. In Christianity, in Judaism, and Islam. Do you see any black here? No. So what does that mean? It means that there's divinity and there's nothing but divinity. Okay, so we're going to have to account for some problems there. What other color is missing? Red. So there's no non-divinity in the entire Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. There's no concept of non-divinity. Because the red is missing and the black is missing. You can say to yourself, hey, this is not this is really interesting to me, but we have lots of problems that come from that. So the first question that I wanted that's normally asked is, okay, if there's no black and everything is divine, now I'm going to go back to the oldest in the group, sorry. What is the logical problem? It is question number 5 on here. Yeah, so, man, like, what did you just do to evil? Where did evil go? And in the Hindu worldview, the answer is there's no evil, there's only ajnana. There is the lack of knowledge of what is dharmic, and there's the lack of recognition of the divinity of others around you that causes you to take inappropriate actions against others. So what does that mean? So I'm now going to take a very extreme example. All of you are dealing with world history right now. World War II, who caused World War II? Hitler. So I'm going to ask you a question now, as a Hindu. Is Hitler evil? So he said, yeah. So you believe in this, or you believe in this? Is Hitler evil? Yes. So that means you believe in Satan. You believe in Satan. This is one of the logical problems that we have, which is that in the Hindu worldview, we would say that Hitler is extremely ignorant of Dharma, ignorant of all the divinity around him that causes him to take adharmic actions. But the concept of evil, which is a force opposed to the divine, that is sitting contrary to God, sitting outside of our universe, tempting our thoughts, does not exist.
But the outcome is, whether you are ignorant or evil, outcome is same, right? How do you differentiate that?
So, absolutely correct. But I just want to highlight that the word, when we bring words from English into our own Shastra, so we said, let's take some of our itihasas. Ravana is adharmic, but Ravana is evil. The concept of evil necessitates Satan, necessitates a non-divine Jagat in order to tempt us away from the divinity. But in this, we just established that we are nothing but divinity, even though there's different conceptions of it. So let me move on slightly. Just give me a moment. So, this is Brahman. Brahman is, for now, we're going to treat it as God. But in Dvaitic traditions, you are an Atma, and you are attempting to merge with the divine. That merger is called, I'm looking for a Sanskritam word, starts with an M, Kavya. The divinity, your Atma merging into divine in the Dvaitic tradition is called moksha. Perfect. So the purpose of your life in Dvaita is for you to merge into Brahman. This is conceived as Mahavishnu, This is not about in any way splitting our dharmas. I'm just explaining the philosophical thinking. In Vishishta Dvaita, if you want to merge into Brahman, what do you have to do with your bubble? Here in Dvaita, you had to push your bubble and merge into the divine. If you wanted to attain moksha in Vishishta Dvaita, what would you do to your bubble? You would pop the bubble. Perfectly said. Advanced philosophical concept, and you have understood it. You are the bubble within a larger bubble that's called Brahman. You are going to pop this bubble and attain moksha. So, does everybody now understand when we use terms that don't really belong to the Hindu philosophy? A, we're introducing concepts that are foreign to it. In the Hindu worldview, there is nothing but divinity. There's differing views philosophically in terms of our relationship of us, which is our Atma, I'm using a Sanskritam word, Atma, with Brahman. Now let's come to Advaita. This is the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya. I didn't draw us in this. So ask me some questions. Where are we? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question back. Have you ever listened to music? You said you study Sangeet, right? You said that you're, okay. And you and your brother, he's playing Mridangam for you, you're singing. Has there ever been a moment in which you've lost track of time? When either listening to music or playing music? Yes. Can you describe that moment for us? Yes. So she said a couple of things. I forgot about the things that were happening on the outside, and I also lost my sense of identity. That is a very, very important understanding here, which is the Hindu tradition, the arts and the sciences are all about getting that immersion into something that is larger than yourself. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the philosophy of Advaita. Advaita says there is no individual you. There is nothing but Brahman. I said something really strange. I didn't say everything is Brahman. Okay, so now I'm going to take another philosophical school. There's a philosophical school in the West called pantheism. Who here is studying for the SATs? What does the prefix pan mean? That's not the word I'm looking for. Pan. Panacea. Pandemonium. Many. Everywhere. So, pantheism is this. Ooh! Everybody should be a little scared here. We've introduced something here. There's no red, there's no black. Everything is divine. But there is a problem. So I said that Advaita, that there's nothing but Brahman. In this, I am saying that everything is God in pantheism. What's the difference? Am I just playing around with words? What's the difference? Help me out. What's the difference? I obviously improved the class since we last did class. So in pantheism, everything is God. And I said in Advaita that there's nothing but Brahman. So let's just make the term, let's just keep them together. To say everything is God and there's nothing but God, are they the same statement? Okay. So this is a very, very important point you need to recognize about Hinduism. What is this term in mathematics? Infinity. Okay. Here, all the school people here have done this. This is a subset. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, is it a subset of infinity? Does everybody agree? Yes. It's a subset of infinity. Is infinity a subset of 1, 2, 3, 4? No. Okay. Now, our Vedas say something very explicit. Time, space, causation, and matter are a subset of Brahman. Okay, everybody should be like cheering right now. Time, space, causation, and matter are a subset of Brahman. That means that Brahman is beyond the physical world. So Brahman is the basis of the physical world. Brahman is beyond time, space, causation, and matter. So in pantheism, it says everything is divine. But for everything to be divine, everything must be a thing. And Brahman is not a thing. Because all things are bound by time, space, causation, and matter. All things in the physical world. So pantheism says the physical world is all divine, but it never imagines a world outside of the physical. So, now we're going to get to the definition of Brahman. Is everybody following me? This is a super cool philosophical concept. Because I'm going to prove it to you, because you're going to say a prayer that you've said 100 times that talks about this mathematical, scientific concept. Okay, so there's 3 attributes, or sorry, I shouldn't say attributes because that's guna. All of these, let me attempt to define Brahman for a moment. So, Brahman is immanent. This is a fancy word. Oh, wow, there was an eraser the whole time. Okay, Brahman is immanent. What does the term immanent mean in philosophy? I'm looking at you. Immanent. What does it sound like? What does it sound like? Immanent. 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 Immanent means that it is right here, right now. Which means all of the physical world bounded by time, space, and causation and matter is all immanent. But there's an and here. Brahman is also transcendent. What does transcendent mean? Transcendent is beyond the physical world, time, space, causation, and matter. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a funny question. Was Brahman born? What do you think? Brahman is born? Huh? Yeah. Not sure. Brahman is not born. Brahman is born. Very interesting. Okay. So, to be born requires that you first have parents. Secondly, it also requires that you live in a specific period of time. So I said something funny here. I said 1, 2, 3, 4 is time, space, causation, and matter. Now for Brahman to be born means that there must have been a time for Brahman to have not existed. Is that possible? I'm asking the youth. Okay. So Brahman is eternal. This is what the term eternal means. We're going to compare this to other traditions in just a moment. So Brahman is immanent, which is all of the physical world. Then transcendent. Brahman is eternal. I'm going to use one last thing. It's going to be very, very important. Concept of Brahman Atman is you. You're not seeking some divinity on the other side of the river. You are seeking the divinity that is already around you, that is you. So this is not something that you're looking for on the outside. So I'm going to give you a very good example. Do you like ice cream? Favorite flavor? Huh? Cookies and cream, one of my favorite flavors. What's your favorite? Okay, I'm going to assume you like ice cream. Vanilla. Cookies and cream. Okay, we're going to have cookies and cream here then. Oreo. Cookie dough. Okay. Butter pecan. Interesting. Okay. Some diverse tastes here. When you put the spoon in your mouth of your favorite ice cream, do you feel happy? Yes? Feel very happy. Okay. Now you turn the label. All of us, we have cereal boxes every morning. We have nothing to read. We'll immediately turn the box and we'll read it, right? So you go through the ingredients label. And what does it say? Sugar, milk, cream. Is happiness on the ingredient label? So where is the happiness coming from? Where is the happiness coming from? From within you. Interesting. So that small little sparkle of happiness that you get is part of a much larger pool of happiness. And that pool of happiness is your own divine inner nature that we call Brahman Atman. So I'm going to tell you a little story. So there's a sage that's walking by and there's a woman that's furiously searching outside of her house. And he says to her, I'm going to ask you a question, that's why I'm looking at you. So she's looking, and he says, hey, what are you looking for? How can I be helpful? And her response is, well, I lost my diamond ring. What would be your next question? You're the Swamiji, you're the sage. Where did you lose this diamond ring? And she says, well, I lost it inside the house, but I'm looking outside here because there's more light. Many of us are similar in this position because we are looking to the world for the happiness. But we are this Brahman Atman. We are the source of that happiness. We are using this physical world as little stimulus. And we think that the happiness sits inside the ice cream, even though it's not on the label, but it's actually coming from within. So does everybody understand here, the youth especially, the search for happiness is not in the outside world, it's in the inside world. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a harder question. Okay, so now we have a lot of this, you have to believe in Jesus. Jesus can deliver you salvation. Jesus is the only individual that ever heard the word of God, so on and so forth. But now, you're hearing something weird. You're like, wait a second, I'm the source of all happiness. I have the divinity within me. So, this is the boundary between belief, which is somebody tells you something and you need to believe in it, versus knowledge. So So the question that I have for you is, is the purpose of Hinduism to believe? Or is the purpose of Hinduism to know? Is Hinduism a belief system or a knowledge system? A knowledge system. Does everybody understand why, because of all of this green, yes, we have divine entities, we have devatas, we have, like, this temple is basically like, look, you want better Wi-Fi signal, you come here. It doesn't mean that the signal is not out there. It just means that the strongest signal is here. But does everybody recognize that you can look within? What are the instruments that you use? And Haritaji loves to talk about this. This is the power of dhyana. This is the science of meditation. This is the process of inner self-discovery. So when your parents, for example, this entire, if you really look at what you're looking at here in the temple, there's actually a secret little kalasa that's actually sitting right under the murtis here. You don't see it. So the murti is meant to say, okay, we're drawing down divinity. It's using the instrument of a telephone. Okay, so let's just say you had a telephone. Okay, you have a cell phone. Clearly you have a cell phone. I say to you, man, you're stupid. Why are you talking to a piece of metal? You say, I'm talking to someone on the other side. In a similar way, when we sit in a temple, we have the strongest signal. There's a kalasa. There's actually something that's buried underneath. And what that represents is us. This is an instrument, like a cell phone, to communicate and understand things that are transcendent, things that are beyond the physical world. Because all of us want to know what's beyond 1, 2, 3, 4. All of us want to know, where does this happiness come from? All of us want to live and bathe in that happiness. That only happens through instruments, through gurus, through shastra, through teachings. So, I want to highlight something to you. Brahman, which is everything that I've described beyond time, space, causation, but also represents time, space, and causation, but bigger than it. There's a specific Shanti mantra. I want to hear, so I'm going to say the beginning words, and you're going to complete it with me. Om Purnamada Idam Purnat Purnasya Purnameva Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So what does this mantra that we have said so many times actually mean? Okay, let's do some math. Hinduism is a very, very logical, it's not a belief system, it's a knowledge system. So let's use math. When you add wholeness into wholeness, that's what Purna means. Infinity plus infinity equals infinity. Oh wait, this was 7,000 years ago. How could they have possibly known this? Because it's through the inner sciences. When I take wholeness away from wholeness, I am left with wholeness. Infinity minus infinity is still infinity. That mantra is mathematically telling you this entire philosophical system, that you are nothing but divinity. You can take away, you can add, but there is nothing beyond Brahman. So Brahman is the totality of everything. So we've all heard that the universe is expanding. What is the universe expanding into? We've heard it, right? Big Bang? Yes? We've heard the universe is expanding. We all agree? What is the universe expanding into? So Brahman is like the tapestry, is like a massive blanket The universe is expanding on it. The moment of the Big Bang. What is the sound of the Big Bang? What is the symbol? Om. Om is the sound of the Big Bang. We call this bhajans. These are like seed sounds. This is why this sound is so important, because it is the moment of the creation of the entire universe. Of time, space, causation, and knowledge. Okay, so we've answered a lot of questions so far, and I'm going to wrap up in just a moment. So is Hinduism polytheistic or monotheistic? The answer is neither. In Advaita, this term translates roughly to monism, that there is nothing but Brahman. But Western philosophical frameworks don't contain all of Hinduism. They're very difficult. So, Western philosophical frameworks are incomplete. Remember that. The West does not have the answers. We do. Second question, are Brahman and God the same? So who was God in the monotheistic tradition? Remind me again. God was sitting up here. We were sitting here, and Satan was sitting at the bottom. So God separate from the world, with us being non-divine. Monotheism means that there is a Ti. The Ti is a God that is separate from the universe, separate from creation. Monotheism is definitely not theism. Polytheism means that there has other gods and then there's us again. The problem is that there's non-divine entities. That is not us. Do Hindus believe in evil? I know that all of us have gone through this. We've read this in Amar Chitrakat, we've read it everywhere. From a philosophical perspective, we believe in Ajnana. The concept of evil is foreign to Hinduism. This, once again, I would encourage, we need to start using Sanskritam language to teach where Western language and English is incomplete. So, I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to close on this thought. What is the source of all of happiness? Where is Brahman? With us, everywhere, everything, but beyond everywhere and everything. When you are praying to God, what are you praying to? I'm not going to bring in the Sat Chit Ananda quite yet. You're not ready for it. You are praying to the divinity that is within you and all around you. Now that's actually a pretty big burden, right? You're like, if I'm divine, then I have to make very, very good decisions. And those decisions are based on Dharma, which is not a concept we're going to cover today. So why is there so much divisiveness with other traditions? So first of all, in monotheistic traditions, the human male, in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, the human male is the highest form of all of creation. Not women. God is a man. God is definitely not a woman. In other religions, in Hinduism, for everywhere there's Shiva, there's also Shakti. So the divine, so females are divine, the female Shakti is divine, women are divine, men are divine, and Brahman is beyond that. That is a foreign concept to 5 billion people on this planet. Except for people like you, because you will know the truth now. The second concept I urge you to consider is this concept called dominion. What does dominion mean? Dominion means that this earth is created for humankind to plunder and enjoy as they see fit. Why? because the human world is not divine. So when you think about climate change, when you think about all the technologies that we've developed without respect for the earth itself, it's a very different philosophical worldview. You must balance the needs of not just humans, but animals and plants and the earth itself. That is responsible oversight and stewardship of the planet. So it's very relevant to the conversation around climate change. The next piece I'll highlight is that in Abrahamic traditions, you can only believe, you can never know God. Let me say that again. In non-Hindu traditions, you can only believe but not know God. The reason why is, that's why Jesus was the only divine person to have ever walked on this planet. So I'm going to add something here. This little green dot sits on our planet. This was Jesus, this was Muhammad. Are those people here now? No. But therefore, what you can't understand the divinity because you are separate from the divinity in other traditions. And therefore, you have to listen and you have to believe in the words of the prophet. In Hinduism, you have all of these. You have your mother, you have your father, you have your community, you have a temple, you have gurus, you have shastras, you have music, you have the science, you have arts. You have so many instruments by which for you to understand that Brahman is immanent and transcendent. Think about how many tools you have that other traditions don't have to find that inner happiness. The last piece that I'll highlight is that in other traditions, their world is cleaved into two pieces. Time is cleaved into two. There's the world before Muhammad, there's the world before Jesus, and there's the world after Muhammad and after Jesus. And after they were born, there's the world of believers and non-believers. And if you're a non-believer, you have to be killed or converted. Have you ever heard of such a thing in Hinduism before? No. But let me ask you something. Somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, have you heard the word of Jesus? Have you heard the word of God? So on and so forth. Of course, by all means, you can listen, but you have to recognize that their conception of religion is that the world is divided into you, and you are just there to be converted. There is no other use for you other than your conversion to the one true religion. So how does Hinduism deal with this? We have so many different sampradayas. We also have one more sampradaya, which I'm going to highlight here. This is an empty box. These are the Shunyavadis. What does Shunya mean in Sanskritam? Zero. Shunyavadis are the Buddhists. So we have people that believe in Brahman as part of our dharmic traditions. We have different conceptions around what is the nature of us to Brahman. And then we have a dharmic tradition that doesn't believe that Brahman even exists. That's Buddhism. All within Sanatana Dharma. We have so much diversity that we're able to maintain because all of these traditions have tools and technologies that you can use to find that inner happiness. So, with that, I'm going to conclude. I know it's very, very hot, but I hope this inspires some questions. And we'll start with the young folks first because that's who I'm really speaking to. None of the rest of us are actually going to really stray from our dharma or marry outside of our dharma. So these kids are the ones that matters, no offense. So, any questions from the group? No. That's not a... The only wrong answer is that you have no questions. Aswin uncle, you are wrong because... Name anything. This is completely new, it's completely different. You have to question it. This is a knowledge system, not a belief system. I'm not telling you to believe this. I'm asking you to ask questions about it. Did some of my older ones inspire me? Yes. He's asking who the Rakshasas and the Asuras are. I have a slightly different view on this topic, and I'll just share it with you. I'm not going to say all the audience, all the people in the audience will necessarily agree. The Rakshasas are people that have highly violent tendencies. There are certain people that are potentially in public office now that may have some of those violent tendencies. I'm making a joke, don't be offended if you're a Trump supporter. There's also Asuras. Asuras dress really nicely, they speak very nicely, but they're fundamentally selfish. They only care about their own desires and the fulfillment of their desires. They do not care about broader society. So I would argue with you that the Rakshasas and Asuras exist right here, right now. All of that, the Rakshasa and Asura pieces, you treat it as though it's a lineage and it's a story and they have horns. We treat it as like there's different gunas that they have that make them either Rakshasas, Asuras, or beyond that. Our goal is to evolve ourselves beyond the base tendencies of violence and the base tendencies of selfishness. How can they be divine? Is because you can still be ignorant. Ajnana doesn't change. Okay, so let me ask you a different question. I put mud in water. Does it make it not water? But it makes it dirty, right? In the same way, we are that divinity. We have to purify the water. We have to not agitate the water. But it doesn't mean. So he gave me a very good analogy when I was 5 years old. I asked him as a joke, we were bicycling. I was like, Swami, like, what is Brahman? He goes, Appa, there's the ocean, and there's all of these waves. Each of us is a wave. Some of us are tall waves, some of us are short waves, some of us are rich waves, some of us are fat waves, some of us are skinny waves. But we are all nothing but water. The water is Brahman. So don't confuse the muddiness of the water, the shape of the water, the height of the water as not being water. That divinity is within us. The recognition of it is the journey of our life. So what is the goal of a life of a Hindu? Is to attain moksha, merging the bubble, merging into the bubble, topping the bubble, as you said, or recognizing that you are nothing but Brahman at this moment, at this very piece of time, if not for the movement of your manas. Okay, good first question. Do you feel adequately answered? How can there be ignorance if they still pray? Okay, so let me. You can go to the gym. You can get really, really ripped. Now, you can now become a police officer, or you can become a gunda. You could be like a thug. So you can build the instrument. You can still pray, but those false tendencies and false values that we talk about, for example, in the Chinmaya mission, it doesn't mean that you're not divine and you can't pray to divinity. It means, though, you still require additional purification. And that happens through the practice of a word called sadhana, which is beyond what I should be teaching you. Questions from the older ones? You got a question.
Is Hinduism the only path to Brahman?
Is Hinduism the only path to Brahman? I'm going to give you a very a funny answer. Hinduism is the best documented, ideal playbook, and therefore the best religion to find that inner divinity. Is every human being, can you realize Brahman without Hinduism? Yes. But most people are going to need some sort of map to make it through all the distractions of life, because most of us are like that woman searching for happiness on the outside versus looking for it on the inside. But you can absolutely attain moksha in the Hindu worldview without ever having heard of Hinduism.
What about paths of India? So if we look at Vedananda, he said that, or Ramakrishna said that these other paths are also valid paths, but from our perspective, we can look at Satan and the worldview of Christians and the Abrahamic tradition as being like fundamentally different from like a Hindu. Yeah, Ramakrishna said that these paths are like, it is the duty of a Christian to be a Christian. It is the duty to be a Muslim. It is the duty to be a Hindu.
Yeah. So I think you're asking a good question. This is what I would say simply to avoid at least confusing the youth. I think that once you go to certain levels of samadhi or certain levels of realization, everything that happens in Jagat feels like an apparitional reality to you. So it's a higher level of elevation. I would argue that you're asking the question, are all religions equal? And I would say unequivocally, absolutely not. My belief is that Hinduism is a tradition that is superior in terms of the tooling, the technologies, the vision versus other religious traditions. And hopefully I can say that in a temple and not get yelled at. All right. Thank you all for your attention, and I'll hand it over to the organizer, Ramji.
Thank you, Ashwinji. Give him a big round of applause, guys. Thank you, Ashwinji, for taking time and joining us this afternoon. I know you travel a lot, and not only the Flower Mound Hindu Temple, but you share your knowledge and wisdom across other religious organizations in DFW area. So we really appreciate your time doing that. Any questions from others? Please go ahead.
Why should you? Why should you teach your kids Hinduism? What is the value of children practicing?
Yeah, my answer to why should you teach your kids Hinduism is actually quite simple. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants their kids to be happy. Hinduism is a technology focused on sustainably and consistently cultivating that inner happiness. Looking for happiness in the outside world is going to leave you short. So teach your children this technology very, very early in life. So that is why you should teach your children, because you want them to be happy. Otherwise, life is just an endless cycle of what we call sukham. There's going to be little flecks of happiness, and then there's going to be a sadness associated with it. And you cannot spend half of your life running after things that you like, and the other half of your life running away from the things that you don't like, because you will not escape them, and you will also not actualize everything that you're running after. So please teach your children the science, the technology, the knowledge system of Hinduism. It is focused on happiness. It is not focused on what is that person doing there, how do I convert them, any of that. It's focused on the thing that matters most, which is our inner happiness. So please, if you're not bringing your children to the temple, if you're not participating in classes, I work a lot with college students, high school and college students. Many of them kind of come to me afterwards, and they tell me about the aggressive nature of other traditions. They also talk to me about not being able to answer simple questions around Hindu Dharma. So teach your children more than you know. that would be, I would say, the biggest guidance I have for parents. Whatever you know, teach them everything and teach them more. So what do I do in my own life? I don't know Vedam very well, but every single day, my kids, they're on Zoom with the Patishala in India, learning Vedam. They're also learning Sanskritam. I don't know that. I can't teach them that. So teach your kids always more than what you know, because then you are giving them more happiness than what you have.
My son is watching, so he has a couple of questions. Can I ask? The first question was asked, is his question, not my question.
Okay.
His class. Okay, why the Hinduism is universal? Is Hinduism is universal, or for entire the world, or only for India?
Oh, this is easy. It's for everyone. I mean, I've met very devout white Hindus. Actually, the Swamiji that I followed when I was quite young, he runs the Asha Bodha Center. So he's part of Swami Dayananda Saraswati's ashram, so Swami Chinmayananda, Swami Dayananda Saraswati. And there's Swami Tadatmananda. He lives in New Jersey in Somerset. He was a Wisconsin white Catholic who is now a Swamiji who teaches Advaita. And I would tell you that he knows the tradition just as well. So this is not limited to Bharatiya people. This is not limited to anybody who speaks a specific language or specific skin color. This is very much a universal tradition to find happiness.
Thank you. And also he asked morning one question, Manusmriti.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it like reading it because the way we understood is caste system came, and then in that caste system always we say Brahmin is the top. Because of your previous karma, you born as a Brahmin. So that means if you born in low caste means you did good in there.
So I have a separate 1 hour lecture on Varna, Jati and caste. Varna and Jati are not caste. That's the first piece I would say. Secondly, I would say that Manusmriti, has anybody here read Manusmriti? Let's actually ask this question. So it's funny that this is the response in a devout group of Hindus, because this is the, oh God, you guys are all horrible, you created this entire thing. But nobody's ever read it. In fact, if you actually go back in history, very few people read it. There's a second thing I'll also highlight. For all the odd things that we say, oh, this is caste, this is Varna Jati, but Manusmriti will, for example, say this. If you have 4 children, raise them in each of the 4 Varnas, because you want society to be prosperous. Second thing that I'll say, if a Kshatriya steals, he must pay a fine. If a Brahmana steals, he must be executed. So for all the things that you say, oh, Brahman, so there is a very large misconception around Varna, Jati versus caste, which is largely a narrative that was heaped on us by outside imperial forces, that we now have to, so every Hindu should stand against caste-based discrimination, 100%. Just as you saw here, you saw all the different sampradayas. I'll tell you a funny story. So we were looking for, my parents were looking for my brother. They were looking for a wife several years ago. And my father is Brayacharnam Iyer and my mother is Varama Iyer. Okay, for those of the kids, it's just like, these are like small communities. They're like within a Varna, there are like all these special divisions and they come from certain regions. And they were like, so almost the engagement has happened and they're like, oh no, you're not pure Varama? No, we can't have all this alliance. So what happened? She went and married a nice white Christian boy. Now, what happened to Dharma? These kids will never learn about Hinduism. Hinduism is there. So we create all of this division around language. There were a lot of outside forces that have broken us, Islam, British, and continue to try to break us today. So I would say you never ever divide Dharma. I know this is like a bitter pill for the parents who live here, but like, please, do not divide our dharma into, oh, they're Dvaita or Advaita, oh, they're from this region, they're from that region, oh, this is their Varna, or this is our Varna. Please don't do those things, because that is the narrative that has divided us. In the 1950s, for example, when they broke India into its statehood, the biggest mistake that they ever made was to break us along the language barrier. And so all of that, there's a massive movement happening now. It's called decolonization. Decolonization is taking what is actual Hindu thought and now trying to use it to correct it. So everybody here, we stand against caste-based oppression and discrimination. But that being said, your particular Varna and Jati, which is not caste, may have very unique contributions that you can make to the Hindu Dharma. So you don't forget those traditions either. So for example, this small boy here, he's doing Sandhya Vandanam every day. So just because you reject caste-based discrimination doesn't mean that you're like, okay, we throw away everything that has to do with Varna and Jati. So Manusmriti, to come back to the question, was nobody's ever read it. And even in past history, there is no empirical evidence to show that it was ever applied on Hindu society. Secondly, for as much as it's said, the whole pyramid notion is actually something that has been created by outside forces, that we have been retaught that narrative. I studied 6th and 7th in India. I will tell you, I learned about the glory of the Islamic Empire and the glory of the British having built the railroads, but nothing to do with actually, wait, what about the 10,000 years of civilization and philosophy that we have? All absent in the curriculum. So this Varna Jati piece, I can explain it, but please bring me back for a time where you have air conditioning and you have and we have a separate 45 session. It's something worth, because I will tell you that there's a whole bunch of caste laws that are coming out in the US. They can only be applied to Hindus. So what it's saying is, you Hindus are so uniquely backward, you're so uniquely deprived of a sense of social justice, and only a Hindu can be discriminatory. So then who will say that they're a Hindu? So they're breaking, so we stand against caste-based discrimination, but do not leave the richness of your culture, but you should correct the things that are wrong with Hindu society. That's all laundry within our community that we need to fix. But we don't need some government or politician or Harvard or Columbia telling us what to do, because they don't even have a philosophical system that can even understand the richness of a Bharatiya philosophy. So there's no one to lecture us. One last thing that I'll say. We get lectured on LGBTQA all the time. India's backward, this, that, Hindu fascism, all that nonsense. Which is the only religion that ever had a place for those communities? It was Hindus. So now we're in a very odd situation. We're in a very odd situation where our people have actually adopted the invaders' philosophy, and they see a boy and girl holding hands and they're like, oh, this is all adharma, this and that. Well, okay, well, how did you think there's 7 types of marriages in Hinduism? Like, I just want to highlight to you, like, for example, the sense of modesty that came from wearing a blouse piece. It was all from the British. So then we get like, oh yeah, women need to be freed, and like, there were people in our tradition that were Digambara. Digambara literally means clothed in air. That's what it means. So this is why I say that, like, a lot of the narratives that relate to Varna, Jati, and caste come from the outside. Sorry, that was a very long answer. Yeah. Okay, we need to wrap up because it's boiling hot and it's 5 p.m. Thank you very much for this opportunity.